And thanks to everybody who's helped us put this together. And thank you all for coming back, or maybe this is your first look at our people-powered fair maps. Just a couple of reminders, be sure and mute yourself unless you're going to be asking a question. And Susan, who's going to be sharing the maps and talking to you about that after I'm finished, be sure and let us know what you think. We really do want to hear from you. And so be sure and give us your whatever you might think tonight, or if you want to send us something. You can always find all of these things and a lot of other information about redistricting on our website, which is LWVKY.org. So keep that in mind also. And then one final thing before I get started, and that's that the League, just a reminder, the League is nonpartisan. We don't support parties. We don't support candidates. We do support policies. And this policy that we're supporting tonight, and we have been for several years, is called People-Powered Fair Maps. We have been pushing for an open, transparent process of redistricting. We wanted there to be public hearings and maybe even hearings all over the state. And we wanted the legislature to do that. They chose not to do that. So that's why we've been having these fair maps forums. So let's get started. So just a quick reminder, and that is that after this census of 2020, we have to have 6 congressional seat districts, 38 Kentucky Senate seat districts, and 100 Kentucky House districts. And then there are also judicial districts that will have to be dealt with, city, county, and school board seats. The city of Louisville, for example, already has drawn for its Metro Council, drawn its maps and published them and received comments from people, and then have redrawn them based upon those comments. Lexington's in that process right now, and it's our information that the legislature is drawing maps. No one's seen them yet. We're still hoping that they will in fact publish them so there can be public comment. These are draft maps. We first drew maps using the old 2010 census, and then when the new census numbers came out, we've drawn them again. And obviously we've had some specific purposes in this, and this is to inform you and to inform all Kentuckians. And please, again, share all of this with friends, family, colleagues, the whatever groups you may belong to, civic groups, educational groups. And then we were doing this to advocate for these fair, simpler maps. Again, we wanted there to be public input before the legislators drew the maps. And then, of course, with our Fair Maps forums and our other places where we have talked to people, we've talked to chambers, we've talked to Kiwanis, we've talked to Rotaries, we've talked to religious groups, churches, individual groups, you name it. We've been all over the state doing that. And of course, unfortunately, we would love to have done all of those in person. We've done a few in person recently, but most of them have been, like tonight, they have been virtual. And so we've been gathering input from all of these events and to use to develop our recommended maps, which we are going to share with the legislature and share with the public. And Susan's going to talk about those. Now, we had some rules to follow. There are legal rules we followed, and the legislature has to follow these. One person, one vote. Most people seem to have that concept. They're sure about this, but this means basically that particularly U.S. House districts, the 6 House districts that we have, they have to be as perfectly equal as possible. Our Kentucky Senate and House seats must be within a 5% of equal size, and that would be going either way. So that's important. Then we also have to have districts of opportunity. And this is where minority voters have a chance to select representatives of their choosing. And then also as part of this opportunity idea, and you'll see this when we get to the next slide, is the opportunity for regions and areas and counties and cities to have a chance to select representatives of their choosing. And then there's the issue of county lines. So the Kentucky Senate and House districts are not supposed to divide counties except, and this is an exception, except when needed to create nearly equal districts. Now, what happens is we know that when they do divide them, because they think, well, we've got to have equal districts, there's no rule that they can't divide each county 4 or 5, ever how many times that they want. All right, we follow some other rules. These are not really rules so much as goals, but in talking with legislators, we know that they were interested in particularly compact districts. The idea is to have whatever district, have them be compact in the sense of that people can actually get around their district easily. They're in easy reach of one another. Wherever the local particular representative's office is, they can get there. The representative can be in easy reach of the voters, because keep in mind, we, the voters, should be choosing them, not they're choosing us. Then county seats. When we divided a county, and we tried to do that very little, but we tried to create a district that was inside the county and included the county seat. We know how important that is to counties for their county seat, which is often a compact area, to be in one district. And we succeeded most of the time. And Susan will talk about that. Now, the one goal that we also aimed for, and legislators did not always like that or did not want to hear this from us, and they've criticized us for it, but we drew these maps with indifference to incumbents. In other words, as it says here, we designed the districts to fit the rules and the goals, but we did not consider how that might affect current legislators. That was not one of our goals, because again, we want the voters to choose the legislators or our representatives, not that they choose us. All right, Susan's going to start talking about the maps and all of the maps that she's drawn, and she'll be very specific. We'll be able to go back and forth, particularly if you've asked a question, you say, hey, I want to look at the prior map. But this map specifically, which you can find on our website, as well as all the other maps, it shows you the changes that have happened in Kentucky from 2010 to 2020. And there's been population shifts. And if you look at this almost at a glance, you can tell that those population shifts have been along the corridors of I-65 and I-75. And of course, they are both connected by the I-64 corridor. And there's been a loss of population in Eastern Kentucky, also in Western, more in Eastern. And then there's been growth along those corridors. So Susan's now going to talk about the maps. And again, please ask questions, put them in the chat, raise your hand. We want to hear back from you before we do our final maps and share those with everybody. Susan.
Good evening, everyone. I'm delighted to be here. I hope we can do this more informally than some of the events we've done, starting with inviting you to steer a little bit on what I pay attention to. If there are particular counties you want to talk about, if you throw that in the chat, I'll rearrange my plans to do those a little earlier. And where I don't have thoughts from the group, I'm going to move through Congressional, then State Senate, then State House. And after a little while, I'm going to start showing you the maps using the software that we drew them in. So if you have questions, we can zoom in. So this will be a little more formal and a bigger chance for you to have input and shape what we're doing. I will add here a further thought on our love for input. We have a form set up where you can type in input if you want to do it that way. That's at the Tiny Earl address. And that will let you put in thought as we go through the maps. It will also invite you to give your email, but we promise we're not using your email for anything but knowing that it's you again. So you'll have the option of coming back later in the evening if you want to add another thought, and we'll know those were both from the same person. You can use the chat now. We're going to copy down everything that's in the chat and use it. You can email us notes to info@lwvky.org. And we are closing in on, we're going to start doing the map revisions. So the quicker you send us the thoughts, the easier it will be for us to use them. With that much said, here we are at Kentucky's official current congressional map. And this is a mildly puzzling arrangement. That yellow first district starts at the Mississippi and runs all the way into central Kentucky. And the second district, one of my esteemed colleagues was showing us pictures of a puppy dog and claiming it looked like the pink second district. The fourth district is an awfully long, snaky thing across the north. So this is a little puzzling in terms of how it can work, especially for the constituents who are trying to connect with those who represent them. A lot of what's going on there, I think, is in the west, trying to keep Warren County and Bowling Green in the same district with Owensboro and Daviess County. And if you let that go, the maps get simpler. I'm going to try moving over to show you our maps on which we again invite feedback. We have worked here on going ahead and putting Owensboro and Daviess County into that western green district, which allows the yellow southern district to be a lot easier to look at. We've also made the southern district in yellow move a little further east and sort of rotated the Appalachian Eastern District a bit further north, which lets the blue northern district get simpler and plumper. And then we have a central district that's sort of centered around Lexington. And we have a district that is mainly Jefferson County, but it isn't all of Jefferson County because Jefferson County is too big to be a congressional district by itself. So here is a closer look at how we divided Jefferson County to get it down to a size that would be a lawful congressional district. Congressional district in Kentucky should be quite close to 750,000 people. So some nibbles had to come off of our 780,000 population county. And I tried to do this fairly simply, adding a little section to the southern district, and that's in the southwest in yellow, and a little section to the northern district, and that's in blue in the northeast. Where I could, I did try to use lines people would recognize. So in that north eastern blue snip being nibbled off, yes, the line there really is I-64 and really is the Snyder, which is what I was after. I'm going to take a move to show you for congressional purposes, and I'm seeing a note here asking about Harrison, Bourbon, and Nicholas. And yes, to make the congressional maps work at the right size, Jefferson had to be divided to make it smaller. And then there were 3 places where I moved a little piece of a county to another district in order to end up with nearly equal size. And you can see here the counties, and I did have to choose them, but I tried to make the map look orderly when I did it. Part of Grayson County has been moved over into the southern district, where the other part is in the western district. Part of Harrison County has been moved into the central district, though I tried to have that be entirely south of Cynthiana. And then a little bit of Mount Sterling got moved into the eastern district. Those are the 3 shifts that let me say these maps were quite close to required size. They aren't perfect because the software I was working with dealt in census block groups instead of census blocks. Tomorrow I start over with the full data access. So I have a thought here about Franklin County being in northern Kentucky. I'm going to go back and point that out. Yes, Frankfort, you can see Frankfort clearly marked. On this map, Franklin County, which of course is in the north central part of the state, is in the northern district. And several people we've heard from have said, we in Franklin County think of ourselves as part of the central district. That is on my list already to look at as a potential change. If anyone wants to share a further thought, either in chat or by speaking up, I welcome it. The first attempt I did to do the maps wasn't pretty, but I'm going to try again to try to get that adjustment made as a thought from participants. I hang out with educators. Sometimes I try for a little wait time to let people pop in and say things. And I see the note, 2 requests to look more closely at northern Kentucky. We will move there. I'm
And
gonna
also
try to-
Harrison, Bourbon, and Nicholas counties.
Yes, Harrison, Bourbon, and Nicholas, which will heavily show up in Northern. And I will try to do Northern early in the Senate look, early in the House look, because that's helpful from the audience to strengthen how focused it is for you. And others with preferences, toss them in and we'll keep working on it. This is the current state Senate map. And it doesn't look wildly crazy. I do want to point out two things that we've discussed with a lot of folks. One is there are a number of districts that look really long and really skinny, especially in the east, starting sometimes right at the Tennessee border and stretching almost up to the Ohio. We speak of those as strings of pearls. They look to us like they're probably a challenge for constituents. If you live in Bath County and you need to get all the way down to Laurel County to talk to a legislator, that could be pretty frustrating. If you live in Laurel County and want to campaign for office and have to get all the way to Bath County, that could be frustrating. That's an illustration of what we mean by compact. And then I want to show you one other thing about this map, which is what it looks like when we say divide the smallest number of counties. That creates a great temptation to use the larger counties, the ones that have to be divided because of their size, as piggy banks to solve all the other problems. So here's an example of how that happened to Jefferson County. Jefferson County in the current map has 5 Senate districts of its own, but then it has 5 others that it shares. It's sharing 26 with Oldham County. It's sharing 20 with Shelby and Henry and Trimble and Carroll. Most amazing, I think, is that 14th Senate district, which starts in Jefferson County in pink and moves out into Spencer County and on to Nelson and Marion and Casey. I live in Boyle County, just north of Casey County. That's a long drive. That would take me an hour and a half. And going through very rural areas, small town areas, all the way into the first edges of the state's largest county. Now I'll switch over and I want to show you our Senate maps. Here's the big picture of we did half of the state as Western, half of the state as Eastern. Since Northern isn't Eastern, I'm going to do my zoom in on Eastern first. And to do it, I'm going to switch what I'm sharing on my screen, because I'm going to let you actually see the maps the way they're drawn. And if you say, I want to see this closer, I'm going to be able to zoom in closer, which I think is the advantage of trying it this way, an experiment I haven't tried before. So here's me in person and switching over. That's the central map, but I'm going to pull over and get us. Yes, here is the whole Eastern map. In a first quick look at it, I hope you can see districts that are closer to looking like circles than like snakes. So a little more compact for the main districts that are composed of multiple big counties. And I'll zoom in and let you see what's happening in Northern Kentucky. Why did it do that to me? So here's Northern Kentucky a little closer. You can see those 3 northern counties. You can see a small set of divisions. So Boone County has a light green district that's entirely its own. Kenton County has a darker green district that's entirely its own. You see that hot magenta district shared between, that has all of Campbell and part of Kenton, and then a pink district that has a bit of Boone and a bit of Kenton and a whole set of other northern counties. That was an attempt to do less dividing of the counties. Did I hear a thought? They are welcome when they come. I will also show you attempts to simplify the divisions of Fayette County. So here's Fayette. It's got 4 colors. That's how you know it's a big county. But Fayette has 2 Senate districts entirely within the county, and then a yellow one that it's sharing with Nicholasville and Jessamine County, and a pink one that it's sharing with Madison County. That doesn't stretch it out very far. Those are counties people commute from casually. I'm hoping that fits those communities feeling like they're pretty well represented and with folks they can build common interest with. Pausing for thought before I show you the Western version. Excellent questions appearing. One question, what's the appropriate population of a Senate district? A little over 118,000 each time for each district, with that 5% room that you could go a little under, a little over, but not much. Shall I move on? I'm going to move on to the Western District.
We had a great comment.
This is the Western map. In the western part of the state, there are only 2 divided counties. Warren had to be divided fairly simply. Light blue district that includes most of Bowling Green and a portion of the rest of the county. And then the other part of Warren County is in a district with 6 other districts. So I'm going to move from that. I want to zoom in a little further to let you see the Jefferson County divisions. This, by the way, is one of the places I crave feedback the most. Doing this feels a bit like walking on other people's eggshells. So I would really love to have people share. That looks like it could work. I don't think that could work. Here's where this has done a good job with communities that work together. Here's where it's divided people who really would like not to be split up. So this gives you 6 districts internal to Jefferson County. 2 of them really are mostly inside the watershed even, though I've gotten some feedback that that's not a brilliant move in terms of how some of the communities think of themselves. And then there's a district that's shared with Oldham and Shelby. There's a district that's shared with Bullitt County, and that's attempting to do a section mainly south of the Snyder at that point. And Hardin County was almost big enough to be a Senate district, but needed to be topped off. So I gave it this sort of drumstick additional area. That was pretty much the only option because of this rule that you can only divide the smallest possible number of counties. So Hardin is next to Jefferson. If you got to solve a problem for Hardin, there's only 1 county you're allowed to divide on the Senate map to do that. And that's going to be taking a slice out of Jefferson County. That's the set of rules. I'm going to pause again for another thought. And I got new comments coming in. Okay, I do see a comment, and this is on over here, much farther west. That green district has Christian County, which is not with Trigg County in blue. And we've had a thought about how much better it would work for Christian and Trigg to be together. I'm going to try hard. I will say the western part of the state is really difficult in terms of trying to put together enough counties to get to the right size. And when you start over on the Mississippi, you're kind of forced into some things. And I don't know if I can put Trigg back where Trigg folks are telling me they belong. But I will try. I think that's exactly the feedback we want. And then I will wrestle the numbers, trying to get to a responsible 118,000 size district. And I will have formal notes saying if I don't get that done. Here's
Susan,
why.
I had another comment from earlier. This is Jennifer, just I'm reading from the notes here. Perhaps the principle of compactness and the centering of county seats can include a transparent acknowledgement that those citizens on county lines sometimes are sacrificed to population density, and the realities of the good of the whole might include these limitations and sacrifices along county lines. I thought that was insightful, and I wanted to read that to you.
Yeah, I agree. You end up in the course of doing this having to do some things that don't feel right for particular communities because it's the only way you can find, though what I've found so far anyway, to create a district that's the right size and fits with the rest of the map. When we get to Eastern Kentucky House districts, I I'm still having low-grade shivers about how much I don't like what I ended up doing to Boyd County. I've got one idea for doing it better, but I'm really concerned about that one because it's a trade-off. And I think Boyd County should probably be the leading people yelling about this don't divide counties rule. They had to be divided, but if a county nearby could have been divided instead, they could have had a more coherent treatment. And that's a problem that is definitely built into the map, has to fit the whole state. More thoughts on the Senate map or more places I should zoom in on? We're a good number for people to just shout out if they want to.
Yeah, Susan, I'm going to shout out.
Good.
Yes, one of the things that hampers our efforts and hampers Kentucky, and this goes to the question about county or the statement about county lines, we have 120 counties and we're this small state. Now that's not going to change in our lifetime, but that's another one of the sort of, so we say, hard things that we have to deal with.
Yes, I mean, it is a relevant factor. I don't know that the maps would get easier if we started merging counties, but I will speak up from Boyle County population 30,030 and say, we like our local government. I think that's enough to show you that. I'm going to switch over, show you the current maps for the State House, and then do the same kind of a tour of our draft maps for the State House. And y'all keep chasing us, and I'm going to plan to come back to Northern first. And let me show you a little more of how the House map works. The House map, it's really hard to make sense of it without getting a much bigger view. But I wanted you to just have a sense of what it looks like and a beginning sense of if you pick a county that has more than one color, you're seeing squiggles. I think this was a legal way to divide up and make the maps. It was really 8 years ago because they did it in 2013. But to me, it's got things that would be frustrating to a lot of citizens. To show you an example, here's how Hardin County and Elizabethtown got divided up. Hardin County has one district that's entirely in Hardin County. That's the 25th. But then it's split up to make districts with 5 other combinations. You can see 26 that is shared with Bullitt in pink going up to the northeast. You can see that long district going down through Hart, Metcalfe, and Monroe. And yes, that straight line is the Tennessee border. So Hardin County is practically at the Ohio, and this stretches all the way down to the end of the state. You can see 18, which is shared with Grayson County, but wanders all the way over into the northeast of the county. You can see 10 with Hancock and Breckenridge, and also wandering awfully close to Elizabethtown. And then Meade has that long, skinny blue piece stretching its way down towards Elizabethtown. I think that's on, oh heavens, I can see it. The big road running up toward the fort. And that's got that stretch of some of those other developed towns besides E-Town included in it. But that's, yes, counties had to be divided. This is a lot of division. These are difficult divisions. A simple guess would be that someone was thinking about incumbents and or party advantage when this was built. I don't have direct evidence of that, but when I try to guess what would explain this, that's what I come up with. In our maps, we're trying to do divisions that are simpler than that. We did do them in 7 sets, which made it easier for me to zoom in. And I'm going to switch over and let you see those. I'm going to start in the north. And once again, chase me about what else you want to see. And also what order would be helpful to you.
We have a comment on Christian, Todd, and Trigg counties that they need to be put together, that they're actually considered a labor market area by the area development districts.
Yeah.
And that Christian has nothing to do with the 2 counties they're paired with now.
I will do my best. I am aware, particularly for the Senate, that's a struggle in getting the combinations right. But I hear that. We've had similar thoughts at another forum, and I think it's a really valid comment on how it's going to work. So let me see if I can quickly locate Northern Kentucky. There we go. Here's the northern structure. This is more complex, as you can see. So there are in the north 2 districts that are just a set of 4 counties each. And then there are 2 that have several of the more rural northern Kentucky counties, each sharing with one of the big 3 at the top. And we can zoom in a bit further. You can see that Boone County has 2 districts that are internal to the county, and then it shares the orange one with Kenton County, and it shares the brown one with Gallatin and Grant. I'm running dangerously here since these maps also don't come labeled. And then Kenton County has 3 internal districts, an orange one that shared and shares with, I've lost track of the names of those counties. Is that Bracken and Pendleton?
Pendleton. Yeah, I think Pendleton.
Right, good. Yes. And Campbell was roughly twice the size of a legal district, so it's just divided in 2 parts. I can zoom in closer. If I zoom in far enough, you can lose track of what we're seeing, and then I can zoom in so close we can see individual roads. Would that be helpful? If not, I'll move back to having a look starting in the west and proceeding as people ask me to. There's
Sorry, Susan, I was reading a comment and I was muted. I apologize. Does Kenton have more internal districts than previously in these maps?
Yes. I think Kenton had 2. It might have been only 1. There were at least 2 districts that were shared with Boone, which may have had a logic in terms of who talks to whom a lot, since those boundaries are socially created. But it looked awfully divided to me, and this is a smaller, less population spread between 2 counties to make districts. But I can't remember whether Kenton had 2 or had 1 internal district before. Here's the western map. It's got some things I think will work okay and some things I think aren't great. Henderson and Hopkins County are the right size to just be their own districts. In the Christian County territory, where I know we have some strong voices, this was my first attempt, open to further feedback, to have the yellow district include fundamentally all of Hopkinsville, and then have parts of the county in districts with other adjacent counties. Davies County, up here, that dark green district really is Owensboro. And then Davies County gets a whole other district before it shares some with another territory. It's not really pretty which part I put in that brown district, but it lets the green district be pretty. That's an example of trading off what's good for different people. I do not like what I did to McCracken County. Paducah people should probably be stomping about a bit, because what that is all of Livingston County plus McCracken County inside the highway to include most of Paducah in one district. It would be better for McCracken County, I think, to have a district that was Paducah and other parts of McCracken County. But I didn't have any way to make a district out of this whole set of the small districts that run along the Mississippi River. It's this along with what happened to Boyd County and Ashland. I would love people to say, here's another way you could do it. I would love to wake up one morning with an idea, because I don't think that's great for them, but it's what fits the law. I also didn't like dismantling Marshall County here. I had to choose Marshall County to solve another problem. The problem being that Callaway County is too small to be its own district and too big to go with anybody else. I see a raised hand.
Yeah, it's me, Susan.
Yes, it is indeed. Hello, Frank Wagner.
Has any thought been given to future growth as you're talking about Hardin County? with the Ford plants going in there, and then we've heard about Toyota, coming to Georgetown, about maybe trying to keep those populations at this point on the low level, realizing there's going to be a lot of growth in the next 10 years.
I have not heard anyone thinking about that, but I'll proceed to try it if there's room to maneuver. It's a tricky thing because once you're dividing a county, you've got this much has to go here and that much has to go there to get within legal. But that could be a rationale for the district shared with other counties are on the high end, and those closest to where the plant will be are on the low end, which would end up close to equal as the years roll on.
Right.
I don't know if the courts would put up with that, but it's an idea that seems to me like it has some responsibility to it. It's a choosing not to make them equal based on the data we have. Of course, that data is already a year out of date. So some of this is always pushing it. If you want to really blow your mind, if you think about the one person, one vote rule, the districts are actually equal in population, not people eligible to vote. There, I'm getting wild at the end of the process.
Right.
That's a crazy thing to point out, but it's true. Are there other comments or questions to engage before I move on to the southwestern section of the state? If there aren't, I'll take you to the next of the house maps. So this is a southwestern section of the state. The two divided counties here are Hardin with E-Town and Warren County with Bowling Green. Hardin County has one district that's just for itself and it's centered on E-Town, but then it shares those three other districts, which is a challenge. Warren County is now large enough to have two districts entirely of its own. And then it's sharing one to the northeast and one to the southeast. And the other districts are reasonably compact, but there's definitely room for someone to say, why did you stick us with that county? I suspect folks in Casey County will say that about being stuck with my Boyle County. The answer is because it was the right number of people. Are there additional questions about this? If not, I'll move to the next one.
So, Susan, I'll raise a question.
Good.
Warren County is actually now large enough to have 3 representatives of its own. So why would it be forced to share representatives with other counties in that case?
Because the state Supreme Court said so.
Well, what exactly did they say?
Okay, great. Let's do a little depth. First, our state constitution says create districts without dividing counties at all. That collided with the Supreme Court finally paying attention to our equal protection clause and said under federal law, districts have to be closer in size than that. So what you had is the Fed saying make them equal, and you had the state constitution saying don't divide counties. The Supreme Court's resolution of that was first, divide the smallest possible number of counties. And then, yeah, you can have a little wiggle room on exact equality. You can go 5% over or under. And that's all coming from our Supreme Court trying to fit 2 rules together. The implication of that is if you are a county large enough to be divided, you're going to be divided. And people are going to look around and say, well, if I take a nibble off of this county, I can make a district work with the neighboring counties. And that's going to be true. To do a map without taking that dark green nibble out of southeastern Warren County, the only alternative would be to divide up some other county that doesn't already have to be divided. Large counties should yell about this, but for now, we're trying to draw these maps to fit what the Supreme Court said we had to do. And yes, I think that's a valid complaint from anybody in Warren County. But to work within the law, it has to be done not saying, oh, let's divide Barron County instead, or, oh, let's divide Simpson County instead. Simpson doesn't have to be divided, so you have to have an awfully good reason before you take a slice of it. And that's how the rules are picking on the big counties.
So is that a state Supreme Court decision?
Yes. It's
And-
actually kind of 4 state Supreme Court decisions, all with Representative Fisher's name on them, to get to
And,
that whole set of rules being laid out.
Okay, we'll see if that gets violated by the current folks or not. But it really that is a huge problem if that's actually the case in the directive and not just typical practice, because it looks like it's designed to systematically disadvantage the more populous counties, and especially the growing counties. And what's happened, as you guys well know, it's happened all over the country, is that people are leaving rural areas and moving more into urban areas. And so, and that's true in Kentucky also. So project, a decision like that or a practice like that absolutely disadvantages urban voters.
Thank you for bringing us a strong argument, Weta.
Well, who do I complain to?
I mean,
Because I know you've done your best.
okay, let me give you an alternate argument, which is the county rule limits how many Disney characters get drawn on these maps. Once you say you can divide counties at will, you're in a heck of a job to keep folks from just saying, I want this precinct and this precinct and this precinct and this precinct and this precinct, and make long, skinny, terrible things in every county. The county rule has put some coherence into the map. And after that, I think there's an argument for press legislators when they divide larger counties to do it in responsible ways rather than irresponsible ones. But if you say it's just as legitimate to divide a county of 8,000 as it is to divide a county of 200,000, things are going to get wilder and weirder rather fast. That would be my best argument. But as a member of the bar, I have something of an obligation to try to do this pretty much in line with the legal rules, unless we end up with the League of Women Voters saying the legal rule needs changing. There's a possibility of that. It wasn't in my direction so far. Let me try showing you the small section here in closer to the southeast. This set of districts is heavily about Pulaski County with Somerset and Laurel County with London. In the previous maps, those 2 counties were divided every which way. In this map, there's definitely a district that is centered on London and is full of Laurel County people, and a district that is centered on Somerset and full of Pulaski County people. And then each of them is sharing with just a few other counties. Laurel with 2, Pulaski with 4. And you can see here the yellow-green map in the middle here. That's my house district. That's exactly the district I have now. And people at both ends of it fuss at each other about Casey and Boyle being together, but we are the right size without dividing anybody. And I kind of think the current Supreme Court rules means we're stuck with each other. There's not another way to do this map. There's not another county we could be with that would make a legal district. So we're kind of locked in together. Pause for breath. Invite questions, invite people to ask me to zoom in. Or I can show you the East. Now the East is due for big changes.
Hold on, Susan, we have a few questions.
Oh, good. Sure.
I don't think you project what may happen. And then there was actually Warren County is now large enough to have 3 representatives. And then a note internally.
Mhm.
I think Susan addressed those. I think the earlier discussion was, can you plan for projected growth and that's, and I think the consensus was that it's not done. And that was the comment of the commenter, and I think
Yes.
and
Esteemed-
I think that was
esteemed-
there. And we just had the other discussion. Go ahead.
Esteemed friend Wagner, is your hand up with a new question?
No, it isn't open, but I just want to clarify, I guess, the other. I
Okay.
wasn't suggesting that in thinking about future growth, we go outside the existing guidelines. I was just saying that if, there's some wiggle room here in terms of the lowest that you can have and the highest you can have.
Mhm.
And I was just suggesting that under existing guidelines, if you thought about where we knew there was going to be a lot of future growth, you could try to stay to the lower, but I wasn't suggesting you ignore it.
Good, yeah. I think it's a reasonable suggestion. I don't think any court I've heard of has considered whether that's a valid reason within the limits. And most folks treat it as a district that's 4.5% larger or smaller than required is completely fine. So as a reason to be 4.5 over or under, that's a thoughtful reason. Laura, I see a hand up for you. Do you have a thought?
I do, a couple things. One is just in terms of growth, and I don't know if it would break those margins, but with the Amazon hub in Northern Kentucky, projected certainly lots of job growth. So I don't know how that might be considered, just a point to note. And then, and of course, that's Boone County, because it's Hebron, but those folks that live just about anywhere in those 3 counties, probably, if they did have jobs there. The other one that just occurred to me as you're talking about, kind of the legal issues and following legal pieces to that, that if in the future there ends up being any lawsuits over maps that are presented as we're seeing in Ohio, I wonder if any of the work that you've been doing here could come into play in terms of arguments. So I want to say I appreciate that you're so tied into the legal piece.
Yeah, I will say, I do think our maps could turn out to be relevant, and I'll give a really specific example. In the cases in 2012 and the case that overturned the first set of maps and led to 2013, we did the maps over again. Part of the proof was it's possible to divide fewer counties. And that came from someone producing a map that divided fewer counties. In my maps, what we have, I believe the number is 21 counties, of which 19 have to be divided based on their total size. They're just too big to be a house district. And then there are 2 that I had to choose to divide. And I mentioned doing that to Marshall County in the west. The other one is right here on this map down at the bottom where Harlan County is divided. And the reason Harlan is divided is because Trigg is too small to be its own district and too big to be partnered with any other whole county. So in the 2 places where that happened, somebody had to choose somebody to get split up. And I chose Harlan County, and I respect any objections they bring to that. And I think it could be legitimate to come up with an argument to split a different county to make the districts work. But Harlan just got tagged by me, as Marshall County just got tagged by me. To show you the 2 other divisions, Pike County is divided, but the Pikeville district is entirely Pike County citizens. So I worked on the nibbles, came at the edges of the county and made them as compact as I could, though in census block groups, you can tell they aren't pretty. I'm hoping that when I get to census blocks, that will look more orderly, and also that I'll be able to zoom in and say, here are the places being divided. To show you the great ugly, This is my least favorite thing, is what happened to Boyd County here. Grayson County was almost big enough to be its own district and needed a little piece of someone, and Boyd had to be divided, so Boyd is where it came from. Making a district out of Carter and Lewis, it was almost big enough, but it needed to use somebody as a piggy bank, so here we came into Boyd County again. And that leaves Boyd County split in 3 places, and with a district that it's sharing with Lawrence County representing Ashland. I'm going to work on changing how I drew these lines within Boyd County. But as far as I can figure out, there is no alternative in this part of the map to splitting Boyd County up to make 3 different districts work. And that's because if you don't do that, you can't make a district for Rowan County. This is known as map makers' nightmares. But I did get good suggestions from the folks speaking in Moorhead about another way to find the population to make those 3 districts be the right size that might be better for Ashland. And I'm going to try that one hard to try to give Ashland something coherent. I got 2 more to go. Who else has a thought? Laura, do you have another thought? Okay.
I don't know how you take it off. That's left over.
Okay. I think it should go to
Oh,
the
lower hand. I
yes, the
found it.
same button switches to lower.
I got
Are
it.
there chat room comments to talk about?
Before you leave this one, I'll just say, Vicki Ellis in the chat says, what is that solution?
Oh, the solution is basically, if you look at the green and blue parts, rotating them counterclockwise. So the blue slice to go with Carter and Lewis would come from more of the southwestern part of Boyd County. And the green part for Greenup would come from sort of north central. And then this purple district could run maybe all the way up to the county line. And I'm going to spend a bunch of time looking at maps showing me exactly what counts as Ashland, trying to make that work. It may not be pretty because Ashland is where most of the population is, and I may have to take a bigger blue bite in terms of space to get the same number of people.
Susan, this is
Okay.
Vicki. I grew up there, so that's why
Yes.
I have a keen interest in that.
Good.
I now live in Campbell County. I've lived here in Campbell County most of my adult life, but I grew up in Boyd and Lawrence and know that area pretty well. I think that would be possibly a little better solution.
I think so. Also, when I pulled out the maps again, I didn't get enough of Ashland into that purple district. So I think I'm going to treat
And
it as,
really along the river, it's
Yeah.
all going to kind of blend anyway.
yeah. That
But
was,
yeah, the more southern parts can blend, I think, more into the other counties.
yeah. It's horrible. If going back to Rita's question about how the legal rules work. In the most recent ruling by the Supreme Court, in the last of the 4 Fisher cases, they said 5% isn't absolutely set in stone. If you had a reasonable policy applied consistently, there might be room to do a little further variation. If I were trying to come up with a rule, it would be a rule that began from understanding what happened to Boyd County and what happened to McCracken County, but I haven't thought of the rule. So if I were based in one of those places, I'd be trying to think of what's a consistent pattern, which might in fact be county seats get districts. But that's going to be the next challenge. To me, is to try to do that better. And I was really glad to have someone give me at least one idea after I felt trapped. We've looked at Northern Kentucky. Let me swing over. Is that 2 maps of Northern Kentucky? No, that's just, I've got so many maps open, I can't see them all at once. Here comes the big enchilada by a lot. Here's Jefferson County divided. I will mention off to the east there's sort of a small little circuit in which Washington and Anderson are in a district that include a bite out of Shelby County and a bite out of Franklin County. The bites were designed to leave Shelbyville and Frankfort in good shape. but they're still bites. And if you move over and put Louisville in the center, that's a lot of districts. It's limited sharing. In the House map last time, which was drawn by Democrats, Jefferson only shared 3 districts, and it shared all of them with Oldham County. It looked for all the world like there were 3 fingers being taken out of Oldham County, and I'm very puzzled about why it wasn't just 1 bite. But here, Jefferson is connected to 4 shared districts, 1 with Oldham in the north, 1 with Spencer and part of Bullitt, another with another part of Bullitt. And then a whole set of internal districts. And again, if you know that county, you can sort of see that I gave the Watterson a bunch of weight. Folks tell me that may not be right. I would love further thought on that. In terms of districts of opportunity, this map has 3 districts with a majority of the voters being Black, and 1 more that's centered around Newburgh that has white voters not having majority. If you look at combinations of Black and Latino voters. That sustains how it was done last time, but it is crazy making trying to create districts that invite fair representation of the African-American community, because in the other counties of the state, they're spread out in ways that can't be connected to make a district. That would probably be the other way to challenge this don't divide county rules, would be to show a district that involved dividing another county, but created more opportunity for African-American voters. Do folks want me to zoom in on this one? They often do.
Susan, the complaint about not using the Watterson, was there any more detail given to you about that?
The thought was there are communities that think of themselves as bridging that boundary. And there wasn't this one and that one. I think that might include Shively.
Probably.
An example. Yeah, I mean, that's, it's other people's eggshells. I need the people who own the eggshells to say, hey, Susan, fix this.
I guess the other one would be whether this map, and I would have to look at it more closely, divides Jeffersontown and Middletown.
Yep. Would you be up for me sending you this link so you can zoom all the way in?
Yes.
Wonderful. That's what I mean, anybody looking at this might say, this woman from Danville who drives around on the major arteries is paying too much attention to the major arteries and too little attention to where is the bakery and where is the park.
Yes, because we do know from the last time that Middletown, which has a pretty distinct area, compact area, people who lived on one side of Main Street were in one district, and people who lived on Main Street were also in another district. So yes, we'll be glad to look at it.
That would be wonderful. I hope there's a note in the notes. It's going to come to me to remind me to do that.
I'll send you a text right now.
Wonderful.
Susan,
Okay.
Susan,
Yes.
do you have a copy of, Metro Council has drawn their maps. Do you have a copy of that?
I have a copy of that. It looks, to me, it's chicken scratching. I'm pretty sure that the elongated districts reflected some thought about communities and reflected some thought about incumbents. But I couldn't follow the patterns they were using. Another thing that might yet be a conversation we should fit in is some folks who know the territory saying, here's what makes sense in this. Might be a way for those who understand the map to show me here's what to take into consideration. But I couldn't get there studying it on my own. I just got puzzled.
Well, just for purposes of information, Jefferson County has had a population move to the east, just like it left the east as far as the state. So
Yes,
That affected things. And then we have some big swatches of land, the airport, GE, Ford, UPS, and that creates all kinds of difficulties also.
yes, I think I don't have a district that has the airport stuck in the middle of it, with people trying to have to drive around it to get to events or to visit with their voters. But that too was a challenge. We will get you zoomed in. We might even have to do it by Zooming to get you zoomed in.
Okay, I'm up for it.
All righty. Last map. Now what I've got is I've got my ability to see your faces at war with my ability to choose new maps. This is the last map. This is the horrible one in terms of divided counties, because the divisions of Fayette and the divisions of Madison County had to go together. This is a more coherent approach to both of those counties, I think, than the current state maps, but I don't argue that it's perfect. So I'll zoom in a bit. You can see Lexington clearly labeled here, and you can sort of see where New Circle Road runs through the county. So there are 3 districts that are fundamentally inside New Circle. There are 3 districts that are outside New Circle, but in the county. And then there are shared districts. They're sharing with Woodford. They're sharing with Clark and part of Scott. No, Bourbon and part of Scott. They're sharing with Clark. And there's this district that bridges across between Madison and Fayette. A few folks who grew up there have said, yeah, those folks think they go together. There's room here for a district that really belongs to Richmond. I've gotten feedback saying, please put Richmond and Berea together. I will try, but I think the numbers are going to resist. I think Berea and Richmond have a population that together would be bigger than a 45,000 person district. And then the moderately bad treatment of Madison County here is that it's also sharing 3 other districts with sets of counties. I don't think that's pretty, but it solved all the other problems without having to divide another county. That's my start. Throw more questions at me.
Susan, this is Vicki again.
Good.
In regards to Campbell County's Senate district, and having part of Kenton County included, it seems to me that it would make more sense with Highway 27 running north-south if we had part of Pendleton County instead.
Yeah,
I know that would be dipping into another county.
Yes. I think you have found a really good illustration of how this rule works. I'm going to see if I can move us back to that so other people can see what you're talking about.
And I was going to bring up the same thing, Vicki. I grew up in Kenton and I now live in Campbell, and it's historic that the Licking River is as wide as the Ohio Ocean sometimes. So
yeah. Actually, so you can criticize me further because of Kenton and its 2 county seats. This is tough because within the Supreme Court rules, I can't go for Pendleton. I can't even divide Campbell another way. Kenton and Boone are the only ones that have to be divided. So problems that can be solved with them have to be solved with them. It's hard.
I think Violet, who is on the call, had made a good point when we were discussing this earlier about the connector going across. So really that does make as much sense, I guess, as anything. There is a connector across the river there in the center of Campbell County.
Right. That might work. It's imaginable that I could rotate this further so the shared part was a further south part of Kenton County. And that would require rearranging the dark green all Kenton district and maybe the light green all Boone district too to make things fit together. Would that make more sense?
Well, there's a connector road with a bridge that crosses the Licking River into Kenton County from Highway 27 in Campbell
Mhm.
in the center of the state, or in the center of the county, but I'm not exactly sure if where
Okay,
we have it on the map now is where that location
Okay.
is.
that seems like a definite thing to be intentional about.
So
Right. Yeah, if it's-
it would make sense that people from Kenton County would cross over into Campbell County using that connector road and
Mhm.
bridge,
yeah.
and then take Highway 27 north.
Mhm.
But I can't tell on that map unless we looked at it closer as to
Yep.
that area, if that would be.
Here we are. Let's see how close we'd have to get to try to see.
I'm going to lean on my Campbell and Kenton County friends here that are in the Zoom.
Oh, it's going to be terrible
there it
for
is.
labeling because we're not quite in a city.
Right, but that does look like the right area
Okay,
for the, I think it's 536.
okay. I will go hunting for that. That is a really good insight for being thoughtful. And
I
when
can't take all the credit for that.
Nope, but I give credit to whoever deserves it. And I can keep working on this, and I can try to think a little more about closer to the connector to make that district work, because there's definitely room as I back out to choose what besides Covington is in this darker green district. So I will work on that. That's helpful.
And Violet Webster on the call did confirm that it is Route 536,
Okay.
and that is the area. I don't
Thank
know how far west it would make sense with that coupling there, but it could be maybe more north-south in Kenton County because of that connector road.
Yeah, that gives me something real to think about, and that's exactly what I've been hoping for in all these forums. So that's great. Thank you. Any further requests before I turn it over to Dee or thoughts?
I one more comment, and this is from Karen, and it says, before you leave that area, what about Boone being placed with numerous rural counties south and west? This is where the rural-urban divide is tricky.
Yeah. Here it is. We were stuck with the set of rural counties had to go somewhere, and they weren't large enough. To the south here, I mean, this is the Pepto-Bismol district in my mind. This is a pink I tried not to use too much. But if you tried, instead of using Boone, Oldham County would be too big. Shelby County would be too big. Franklin would be tough, but possible. As places that have to be divided. No, pardon me, I'm not even like, I just have to take a whole county. And any one of those counties would throw more of this off, though there might be a way. So that's the challenge they're trying to get to. At least it was rural parts of those two counties that were being tapped into. But I think my intention, and I think I was able to follow through on this, was always to look for combinations of whole counties first and only move into those larger counties and slices of them after I'd made as big a district as I could that was combining whole counties. That was part of how I avoided the scale of divisions we saw in the state's current maps. But I can take another look at that, and if anybody has ideas on what to include, please share. It would be great.
And if anyone wants to interrupt for another comment on this specifically, please do. I didn't want to cut short any discussion. There is one other question about Northern Kentucky. I had sent that in, transferring something from a citizen, and it was back with the congressional districts. There's one county that's divided and doesn't need to be divided. Maybe we don't need to go back to the map, but that's
I can do that. Is there a particular county that someone was asking about?
Yep, Harrison County is split into two.
Yes.
And if looking at the population numbers that are allocated to each, Of the
Mhm.
districts, the pink district is above ideal size and the blue is below. So moving the southern part of Harrison County, it's 6,429 people out of pink and into blue would bring both of those districts closer to ideal.
Okay, I'm gonna be, all right, that's a helpful thought. What I'll add is everything you have seen was me solving a tech problem that hit me on Labor Day. We had scheduled the forums and I was working in the Maptitude software that lets me do individual census blocks and get very precise sizes. And the software crashed completely and nobody was going to answer phones for 3 days. And those were my 3 work days. So I switched to this online software because I could produce things for people quickly enough. But it only does census block groups. So I'm moving like groups of 200 and 300 people at a time. And that
Right.
throws off the size of the districts. I will be able to do more refined work next time. And if the strongest suggestion I've gotten is to put Franklin County into the central district. And if I can find a way to do that, it will almost certainly involve putting all of Harrison County into the northern district.
Great.
Got to make
think-
all the pieces fit, but that's the thing I'm going to work on first when the sun comes up tomorrow morning.
Right. And
Susan?
then
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just, you were probably going to do this. I was just passing on one comment from Frederick Otto to everyone. And this is maybe goes with the transition from you back to Dee. Says, this is my first session attending. Can you reiterate where we are with the current round of redistricting by legislators? And for the bigger picture, how to get this process out of partisan hands and into the hands of public groups or commissions?
I think that's the perfect transition for me to hand it back to Dee as our chair.
All right. Thank you so much. And thanks, Susan, for all of your expertise in this. And yes, let me answer that question by saying this. We actually have supported having an advisory commission. We did that in the 2020 legislature, as well as the 2021 legislature. We even supported a joint resolution that they would act as if there was an advisory commission by having public hearings. And unfortunately, none of those ideas got any traction. To get it solely out of the hands of the legislature, we would, and have an independent commission, would require a constitutional amendment. Only so many constitutional amendments can be on the ballot at any one time. It takes a huge effort to do that and get obviously sponsors in the legislature. And with our not being able to get anybody to help us and push forward, even to having hearings on the idea of an advisory commission, we ourselves have put forth all of these Fair Maps forums. So you're right, we should in Kentucky, to make it really people-powered Fair Maps, take it out of the hands of the legislature, and that's provided for in the Constitution, and that's why there would have to be a constitutional amendment. So we've wanted to have these Fair Maps forums, and again, as I mentioned at the beginning, we've talked to groups all over the state because the legislature has not done that. Now, where are they? You may have seen in the paper, and it's been reported on news outlets, that Republicans have said they want to have a special session, which would have to be called by the governor, to deal with redistricting. That has not happened so far. There's been a lot of speculation. Well, and apparently the governor's office has said, well, so what are you planning on doing? Produce a plan ahead of time. That hasn't happened. Again, what we keep saying, and we have talked to lots of legislators, is where are the maps? Let us see the maps. We as a group have even been asked well, will you approve our maps? Well, as we have said to legislators, we can't approve what we haven't seen. We can't make any promises that we would approve the maps or not. We know they're working on them. They are using Maptitude, which is what we purchased to work on these maps, besides the other technology that Susan mentioned, but they have not published them. I was talked to a legislator yesterday, same thing, produce the maps. Supposedly They might put them out before they go back to work in January the 4th. That would be great, but will they do it where there's enough time? Because think about the holidays. Will they put them out in enough time for people to comment on them? And again, if they had done this process of an advisory commission like we wanted last year, even with the delay in the census numbers, they would have been able to do a lot of work, just what we've been doing tonight and have done before that, by looking at the maps, talking to people in Boyd County, into Campbell and to Campbell County and Kenton County and Boone County and Pendleton County, you know, Trigg County and Hopkinsville and Christian County, McCracken County. They could have gathered so much information over the last 2 years that would have had public input into this process. So when they did these maps, you know, they would have that information. As far as we know, and unless they've been having some secret meetings all over the state that we don't know about, they haven't done that. So that's part of why we're going to ourselves produce our maps. Susan, as you can tell, is going to have a lot of work ahead of her, but she's going to do that. We're going to produce them. We're going to send them to the legislators. We're going to publish them. You are going to be able to see them on our website. You know, you can call us up. We'll get you copies. So what do we want you to do? We want you to call your legislator, get your friends, families, colleagues who live in other districts to call their legislators and say, boom, we want to have input into these maps. Where are they? Publish them. Have an open and transparent process. You can also sign our people-powered Fair Maps petition. It's online. You can print it out and get people to sign it, get it back to us. You can sign it online. It's not one of those petitions that we have to have the Secretary of State approve and you know, have so many numbers. We just want to be able to share with the legislature, look, these many people at least have said, have a Fair Maps process, and encourage, again, everybody, you know, friends, family, colleagues, you know, your aunts and uncles that live far away from you in another county to do the same thing. It's very easy to call the legislature. The people that man those lines are some of the most polite and kind people you would ever talk to. They'll take your name. They know which district based upon your address that you're in. They can get you to the right legislator, or you can leave the same message for everybody. And again, they're very polite and will do that. So we want to thank everybody. We want to thank you for your questions. We want to thank you for your comments. Please, again, you can also do this online and give us comments through. We would literally like to have them today. It doesn't mean that we wouldn't notice what you might send tomorrow, but we're going to take all of these comments into consideration. So thank you, Jen, for taking care of this. Thank you, Susan. Thanks for Wida and Laurel and Becky and everybody else. And I hope I haven't left anybody out. I think there's another Jennifer that's helped us with this. Cindy Heine, who is our legislative liaison, who's helped put all of these programs together. She had another commitment. To everybody who's listened. Again, this will be recorded. You can get it on our website. Thank you. We really appreciate it. And good night.